wanted to write from like the moment I couldn't even spell.
But I do agree. I got a lot to learn when it comes to acting. I still got to practice.
We're on the radio promoting the show and had invited people.
Better than the first. The Adam Talks Podcast, Season 2.
Welcome to another great episode of the Adam Talks Podcast, right here on whatever platform it is you're watching or listening to it on. Whether that's YouTube, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or iHeartRadio, we thank you for tuning in. Hey, before we get started though, can you do one real quick thing for me? Just one real fast thing. It takes 2 seconds out of your day. If you're on YouTube, could you hit that subscribe button? And if you're on one of the other 3 platforms that I just mentioned, could you hit that follow button? It would sure mean a lot to us, and it helps out so much to see who's watching, who's paying attention, and who's staying along for the ride. Today we have an awesome episode. It is an episode with someone who has been on UFC's Ultimate Fighter before. Also, she helps coach the high school wrestling team here in Hot Springs at Lakeside High School. As well, she is a professional jockey. We have Miss Chel-c Bailey on the show today, and we get into all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's a good time, guys, and I can't wait any longer. So here is my conversation with Chel-c Bailey. Welcome to another great episode of the Adam Talks Podcast. We have a wonderful guest here today. Someone who is in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the Ultimate Fighter at one point. That sounded weird, but I said it that way. Also, assistant wrestling coach at Lakeside High School here in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and a professional jockey. We got Chel-c Bailey on the show today. Chel-c, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Couple bumps along the way to get us to this point, but hey, we're here now. So very excited, very happy. Yeah. How you been? It's been busy for you, I assume, being Derby week?
Yes, it's it's the Racing Festival of the South, and with the Arkansas Derby, there is actually points that horses gain whenever they race. Whoever wins, they earn points to get into the Kentucky Derby. So it's a major stepping stone for the Kentucky Derby, which is on May 5th. So it's a big race.
Oh wow! Yeah, I've heard the Kentucky Derby is said a lot whenever I've seen anything about horse racing and stuff. Is that the biggest race in the U.S. or is there other ones around the same size as that?
There is. It's actually called the Triple Crown. There's the Preakness Stakes. There's the Belmont Stakes, and then there's the Kentucky Derby. But the Kentucky Derby is the most sought after. That's why it's the biggest race, is that everybody wants the Kentucky Derby trophy.
Oh wow! Have you raced in the Kentucky Derby before?
No. There actually has not been many females that have raced in it. There's a few Hall of Famers that have. But there are, at least as of now, there are fewer than 40 female jockeys in the United States.
Oh, wow. Now, that sets you apart, though, doesn't it? Wouldn't you say that sets you apart from other jockeys? Because you're one of a very, very small group. That must make you feel real good that you're able to do stuff that a lot of other women aren't able to do. Puts you kind of, I don't know, I guess above a lot of the other ones that try to do this and don't necessarily succeed. What have you done to be able to get yourself to this position?
Oh, it's been a lot of prep work. It's been a very long, winding road, but it's definitely the women who have paved the way for me that were in the dark ages of it, in the 70s and the 80s, and before that, who, women back in the day, they had to cut their hair to look like boys. They would have to change their names, that they wouldn't even use their full name. They would only go by a first initial because they didn't want anybody on the program to see that it was a woman riding.
Wow.
It's the good old boys club. So that's why when you see me race, I always, I have my hair in a braid. I fight with a braid. I wrestle with a braid, and I can race with a braid. So I'm not ashamed to be a woman out there doing it. And, if I can wrestle and fight, I can ride a horse with a braid. I don't need to hide it up in my helmet.
Definitely. You're probably kicking a lot of ass out there. How's it been for you racing this time that you've been around?
This year has actually been a very humbling year. It's been a tough year this year, but that's the ups and downs of racing. I finally think I've learned when they say that you're better lucky than good. There's definitely a lot of luck that you need in horse racing, and it's I mean, anything when those gates open, anything can happen, and you can be the long shot winning the race, or it can just be the favorites all day. It's just the name of the game how horse racing goes.
Wow. Is there, all right, now this may be a weird or maybe not I would say an ignorant question because I just don't know a lot about horse racing. Is there a lot of strategy whenever it comes to horse racing?
Yes. I like to use it like with a comparison to fighting because just like how you can watch footage on a fighter and every fighter has a style, it's kind of the same with the horses. Each horse has a style. Sometimes they're front runners, sometimes they're closers, sometimes they're stalkers. They like to be in the mid pack. They're horses that are bred for distance, and there's anything from 5 furlongs, 5.5 to 6, 6.5. There's horses that are bred for the grass, so they have to have a grass surface to run on. There's some that are on the poly track. So yeah, there's a lot. So you get some trainers that are ignorant that don't look at the breeding to see what the sire and the dam are, and they keep running a grass horse on the dirt, which you're not going to get the results for. It's like trying to take a street bicycle and go take it out mountain biking.
Yeah. Okay. And that makes a lot of sense. I guess in the same aspect as, fighting, you would have your stand-up fighters or your ground game fighters, or you would have your Muay Thai or jiu-jitsu or kickboxing, boxing, wrestling. You'd have all these different disciplines, and one may match up better with another than the other does. In the same sense, I guess horse racing would be the same, like you were saying. You got grass ones, you got dirt ones, you got what was it, poly? You said you got the poly ones,
poly
or whatever.
Track, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's artificial.
Oh wow. Okay. How long have you been racing horses?
I've been involved with it for 8 years. I've poured myself into it for 8 years now. As far as being a jockey, I've been riding since 2019. But with horses in general, not race horses, I've been riding horses since I've been like 3, 4 years old, since I was a baby.
Oh wow. Wow. What got you interested in riding horses and being around them and dealing with them?
I just was the black sheep of my family. I was the nerd. I had every horse book you can imagine. I collected Breyer horses. I mean, no one knows where I got this gene from, but I mean, any horse movie, any horse book, I was just obsessed with them. I didn't necessarily grow up with them. I just kept begging and asking for Christmas, and I had kind of got some like a little loose like lessons, and then I begged for a horse, and I got a pony, and the pony wasn't big enough, so then I got a horse, and my mom couldn't believe that I was 12 years old and I could own a horse legally in my name. Whereas, like,
Wow.
you have to be like 16 to be able to have a car, but you can be any age to be able to own a horse.
Wow. So it was all Black Beauty and Seabiscuit for you.
Yes, yeah, pretty much. National Velvet. I think the Black Stallion was probably one of the biggest
I
inspirations.
don't know how I
And
forgot
then,
about that one.
yeah, that I read the books, Walter Farley, and then even in like pop culture, Rob Dyrdek. I watched a lot of Robin Big and Ridiculousness, and Rob Dyrdek like went and rode a racehorse in a race, and I was
Oh
like,
wow.
if Rob Dyrdek can do that, I can do that.
Definitely. Man, I guess it seems like, that would be the dream that you're actually achieving now from way back when you were a kid, You're seeing all this, you're like, I'm gonna do that one day, and you went out and you're doing it now. That must feel
Yeah, and it's
incredible.
actually at like one of the biggest racetracks in the United States. So it's
Oh wow.
I'm very grateful. I'm very blessed. Like I said, it's like you can sit there and look at like, oh, it's a rough year, but like at one point in time, like I wanted to be exactly where I'm at right now. So like I can't complain.
Is it just the old saying of getting back on the horse, getting up and trying again whenever you fail or whenever something bad happens? Or is there a lot more mental aspect that you got to work through?
I know it sounds really cliche about like just like never giving up. But I think that if you just keep chipping away and you just keep putting in the time and putting in the work, and people to see that you're serious and that if you really want something, like, you will get it accomplished. I always say, when I see, they say that, like, you never truly fail until you quit.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like the same thing. I mean, it's obviously, I'm not going to pick up a guitar and become Taylor Swift, but, like, being realistic of knowing, I have a love of horses. I've been an athlete for pretty much almost all my life. And, being small, like, if I was, 20 pounds heavier and maybe 6 to 8 inches taller, I wouldn't be able to be a jockey. It would automatically, like, exclude me from it. But, being born small and being able to be in that weight class, to be able to know how to cut weight because I've dealt with it through fighting and I have that strength. A lot of girls catch a lot of flack for not being strong. And so I definitely set myself apart from all of them because, I've wrestled for over 10 years. I've been boxing for 6 years plus. And so it's like, you can't say that I'm not strong or that I don't have strength. Maybe not the experience, but, it's one of those things that, horse racing is the only sport where women compete with men on the same level playing field. No transgender. Like, it's the only sport out there that men and women can compete equally.
Man, that must be, I mean, I don't know if it would be any tougher going against, the opposite gender, or if it would be the same as going against the same gender or tougher. I mean, it is the highest, I guess, evolution of a sport, being able to go against either gender in the same competition at the same time. I mean, the only thing I could think would be like marathon running or decathlon or something like that. But even in some of those, it's women with the same grouping and men with the same grouping. I don't know. That's nuts that you're able to do that sort of thing and really have to set yourself apart and have to be able to make yourself be seen in order to compete against everybody. I don't know. How is it, or how is it more difficult being one of the only women in there racing against other people, or is it the same as going into any competition for you?
People say it's funny to say this, but it's easier to fight than it is to be a jockey, I think, sometimes. Because, like, when you go into a race, there's 12 horses that go into the race, and there's only one winner. But when you step into a cage, there's only 2 people, and there's a winner or a loser. You don't really get a second place or a third place. It's a win or a lose.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it's, I don't know how to explain it. It's like it's like the good old boys club. I mean, it's something that's been around since, it was the sport of the kings. Like, the kings used to have the best horses and they'd ride them themselves in races. So it's, a sport that's originated from England, that's come over here to America, that's, like, been going on. Like, one of the historic things about Oaklawn is that, like, it's only closed a couple times, and one of the times was, like, during World War II. And even during, like, COVID, which was, they've said that COVID was the closest thing compared to it was, like, World War II, that Oaklawn was still going and was still operating.
Wow. I didn't know that. I've lived here in Hot Springs all my life, and I had no clue about that. Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy to be able to drive to work and know that, like, casinos in Las Vegas, Nevada were closed, but the casino in Oaklawn and Arkansas was still open.
What did things in your childhood influence your career paths that you've been on?
Yes. I don't really like to talk about my childhood too much, but if I didn't have everything that had happened to me, I would not be where I'm at today.
Yeah, I can completely understand that, 100%. How did you get into the fight game? Switching off, just real quick, how did you get into the fight game? Was it something where you started in wrestling first and then it just came to that, or was it boxing first, or?
Yes, it was wrestling. I started out wrestling in middle school. I did it up and through high school. And a lot of the boys don't get the opportunity to go get high school or college scholarships because there's so many of them that do it. And I was lucky because there wasn't really that many girls doing it, and I was an above average female, and I had gotten scholarship opportunities from quite a few states and places. And whilst I was in high school, a lot of the boys go into MMA. And in Washington, where I was raised, the fight culture up there was massive. It's huge. And so is wrestling, women's wrestling, and just wrestling in general. And I had some boys on the team that were like, "You need to come fight. We're having fights this weekend. You need to come do it." And I was like, "Well, I don't know how to fight. I know how to wrestle, but like MMA is like mixed martial arts. Like you can't go against somebody who knows karate or taekwondo and all you know how, it's like you need to know to be like well-rounded. It's like a video game whenever you're like going to see everybody's strengths and like you want to be the well-rounded one, like and so I had them kind of teaching me some things, like some like it was like basically like backyard, like my friend had what do you call it, a punching bag hanging in his garage, and then he had a couple mats from gymnastics mats to like do some like stand up and some groundwork, and like basically with like a few weeks of like backyard training of like learning how to at least like take a punch and give a punch. I just took a fight just at random, and the girl was actually a weight class above me, and she had been practicing for 6 months. So I was like, I haven't been in no gym for no 6 months. I've only wrestled for X amount of years. And anyways, I ended up taking the fight, and I just took her down, and basically it was like I just schooled her the whole entire match because she couldn't box off her back. She did kickboxing for 6 months, and like that's why I always say that I like to fight people who are kickboxers or boxers because you can't box off your back. And she had no jiu-jitsu skill, and she had no wrestling skill, so I just pinned her down the whole time and was just punching her face, and it went to decision, and I ended up winning. And from then, there was a couple coaches who were at the thing that were like, "You need to come into my gym. Like, don't worry about paying for anything. Like, get in here. We need to teach you." And it just kind of went from there.
Wow. Into the fire. Just right in the deep end. Just thrown in there. Yeah. They're like, "Come on, you're going to learn. Come on, I'm going to show you. We got a punching bag. We got some gymnastic mats. It's going to be great." And you're like, "Oh, yeah, whatever." And then it works out.
It's basically like backyard brawls. Like, I mean, I don't know. You only live once. Like, I mean, I've been in like some scuffles here and there, and at our school we would bring some boxing gloves, and we'd go across the street and have some boxing matches. And I don't know. It's just I just kind of took to it, and it has been I picked it up pretty fast.
I'm guessing being in wrestling and being in sports in high school and stuff helped out a lot to be able to listen to your coach and not necessarily listen to the crowd, to kind of tune them out and just hone in on your coach. Am I right?
Yes, yeah. I kind of have a little bit of a unique ability that from that. It's funny that you say that, but I recognize people's voices really well. So I can pick up on like if I'm used to and I know somebody, I memorize them by their voice. So I can hear somebody talking and I'm like, "Oh, that's so and so." And it's definitely helped in a fight. And some people, they see red, or they can't like focus. And like through the ability of being coached pretty much my whole life, I've learned to tune in and to be able to shut out the rest of the crowd and ongoers, and to just focus in and listen on what my coach. And I also like to listen to what the other coach is saying as well, because then I can counter, because if they're saying, "Oh, well, she's doing this," then I hear what they're trying to say to counter, and then I'll shut them off before they're able to do that. So I've gotten pretty good at like being almost ambidextrous with my ears to be able to hear one side and then to hear the other.
That's nuts. That's nuts. And that's crazy.
And it's kind of the same thing too with like in racing, because you'll have horses around you, so you'll hear and see what one rider next to you is doing, but then what's the other rider next to you doing, and like what's his cues of like how much horse he has or where you're at in the race. And you can, when you're trying to box somebody in, or they're trying to shut you in, and you already have to be like 3 strides ahead of where you're already at. So it's definitely, there's a lot of things, not just balance, not just strength. It's things like that as well, of like listening ability to be able to take in and know what's like going on in your whole split second reactions of what's going on around you.
It seems like one kind of feeds into the other. I mean, from the way you're explaining things, it seems like one would kind of feed into the other with the listening part. That is, like, you're hearing your coach, you're hearing their coach, but also you're able to hear horses on either side of you, and one's kind of feeding to the other whenever you're listening and finding a different way to a different skill, if you will, I guess, than maybe most people even have, because from what I understand, I've talked to a bare knuckle boxer, and she said it was really easy for her to tune into her coach, but she didn't mention a thing about hearing the opponent's coach. And then I've talked to MMA fighters who said they've listened to what the other coach says, but says, it took them a little bit to be able to hear what their coach was trying to instruct them to do. So that is a unique skill that you have, and for it to come along naturally and stuff, that's just amazing.
Yeah, I like one thing like with fighting and with wrestling is you always have like a dominant side, and I think I grew up snowboarding and skiing, and so I've learned to be able to use both sides. And the same thing with wrestling. I would always challenge myself to learn the weaker side, which has usually kind of been my left side. So on certain things with like riding, an ability to be able to use your stick left-handed. So I went and for the longest time I would like only eat with my left hand. I would use my left hand to try to write with. I'd use my left hand. Like I stopped using my right hand, and I was like, I need to make my left side stronger. So I kind of took away my ability of like the go-to, and even like it's something is like texting. I started only like texting with my left hand because I was like, I need to get these motor skills on my left side better, more in with it. And I've kind of challenged myself a little bit with even with like fighting and wrestling, like taking, left-sided shots and left-sided takedowns. And, like a good example is, Misha Tate, or not Misha, but, Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey. Holly Holm had her southpaw powers, and Ronda Rousey, like, I think really overlooked that. And, she ended up knocking her out. And she was just never expecting her like left-sided. She was expecting everything to be right-sided because that's what she probably trained a lot for. And I think she, in a way of like using somebody else's like embarrassment or as somebody else's experiences as an experience for yourself, it was a big realization for me that it's like, you have the ability to be able to try to increase your skills or to make yourself better for certain things. So why not like stress on it and try it? So I've always used her as an example of like me as a person trying to make myself better, of like, don't be Ronda Rousey. Like, like always like try to utilize yourself, and and you might not pick up on it. You might just only be more right hand dominant, that obviously you want to hone in and become better on one side, but, don't ever underestimate. And, if you can be so good on one side, why can't you be so good on the other side?
Yeah. And obviously I've never been in that sort of an elite fighting environment, or any fighting environment for that matter, because I'm not a fighter, but, I've never been in that sort of elite environment, period. I couldn't imagine. But from an outsider's point of view, Ronda seemed like she was more of a one, and this is not any kind of offense, she was a one-trick pony. She did judo. She was able to take people down and submit them. Her stand-up game wasn't all that great. So I imagine she probably went in there thinking, oh, I'm going to take Holly down. I'm going to take her. And then, bam, kicked in the head. Done. Goodbye. It was over at that point, Are you a regular stance, or are you a southpaw, or do you switch?
I'm regular, but I do like to switch, because I've really focused a lot of my wrestling on taking, left-sided shots and things. So, I mean, as far as like my stand-up might be a little more on the right side, but when it comes down to setting up for shots and things, I'm comfortable and I'm not afraid to go on either side. I mean, I really practice. I spend a lot of time on trying to become a very good, well-rounded fighter, but also to capitalize that, my ground game is my specialty, so I don't ever want to get away from that. Like, there's always room for improvement. You're never gonna be the best. There's always somebody out there better than you.
Yeah, well, I mean, but you can always train, right? You can always train to be better, train to get to that point where you can say, hey, I am legit one of the best in the world in this sport that I am competing in. And I mean, I don't know. I've heard that it's super hard to train to fight a southpaw because there's not a lot of them out there. Have you fought southpaws?
No. I actually have not. But
Oh, wow.
I've been in Vegas when I have been like where they're flying people in to come in to because you need training partners that are southpaw, because you can't just all of a sudden, like, without practicing into it, like, okay, now I'm only going to go southpaw, this whole time, because it's not natural. You're not used to that. Like, you have a dominant side, and I think it's kind of a bit of a superpower, just because if you're so good at that, people are not expecting it. And like I like to say, the Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey is like a really good example, because, I mean, I don't know what Ronda Rousey's training camp is, but, like, she wasn't able to stop it.
Definitely not. She couldn't stop it. That was something that was just coming for a while, and then all of a sudden it's just done. She's done.
Yes.
But did you have many amateur fights before you went professional?
Yes. I was a little bit, like, worried about going professional, because, I mean, the only difference between a professional and amateur is you just get paid for it, and then it becomes your professional record, whereas your amateur record. I didn't want to sandbag myself, because, like, once you start getting too many amateur fights, then when people, like, go to pro, they're like, oh, well, it's like boxing, kind of. Oh, you've had this many fights, like, and then you got somebody who's, like, people who get on the speed program of, like, 2, 3, 4 fights and then just jump into being a professional. And then you got somebody who's got, like, 13 fights, and you're like, well, they have, 13 more fights of experience, so then it's, like, makes it hard. But then, also people want to look at your credentials of, like, what level of a fighter are you? And wrestling is, like, it's like, the thing is there's no girls that wrestle. I mean, obviously more and more now, but, back when I was fighting, like, it was, there was jiu-jitsu, and, I mean, like, high ranked belt level of jiu-jitsu doesn't have the strength and the aggression of the wrestler, and, so most of the girls do have, jiu-jitsu bases, but there's not a lot of weight and manipulation going on, where, like, wrestling, where you're trying to toss a person, throw a person, and, you do learn minor bits of judo in wrestling, because you're manipulating a human's body weight. Whereas, like, jiu-jitsu, you're wearing a gi, you're on your back, you're, waiting for that person to make a move. You're going to try to sit there and, like, get a submission. Well, you can throw kicks and punches in that, and they're not used to that. So, wrestlers, where they're more speedy, they're quicker, because, you only have a certain amount of time that, you have a wrestling match, and it's point space. So it's like, you want to get all the points. And it's almost like the same with kickboxing. But, people say, like I always say, like, you can't box off your back. Like, you crowd a boxer, you crowd a kickboxer. Like, you gotta sometimes take one to get one. But, it's one of those where, people like to see, like, what's your background? How good are you? And I've struggled to find a lot of girls to fight, because I'm a top level grappler, and, whatever years of experience that people have been doing jiu-jitsu or boxing. And I love to fight boxers, and I love to fight kickboxers, because you can't box and fight off your back unless you have, like, really good, ground defense. It's definitely I'm very intimidating.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you're a top, like you said, top level top level wrestler. I mean, you got top level wrestlers like Brock Lesnar whenever he was first came to the UFC, like Matt Hughes whenever he was in there years and years ago. And Matt Hughes is my favorite of all time. I absolutely loved watching Matt Hughes fight. Take him to the ground, beat the crap out of him. Done. You know, he was just
Yeah, no, I mean,
outstanding.
it's like it's the strongest base. It's like a base you have to have. That all the top level fighters from the beginning of time to now are all grapplers. I mean, Cormier, George St. Pierre's, like, I mean, people have
Dan
like spent a
Henderson.
lot of time. Yeah, like there's just so many people that have or have a wrestling background, and it's just like I think for me it's easier for me to have learnt how to box and how to kickbox and Muay Thai than it is to like teach people how to wrestle, because like there's so much like weight manipulation and like it's a felt thing. And well, that's the whole thing with the coaching that I've been working with the girls and stuff, that it's like I'm trying to explain to them like this, it's a learned felt thing. Like you can feel yourself when you're getting too high. You can feel where they're like their next move of like where they're going to be like trying to slip out, because they feel that that's like the weak area that they can go out through. And like some of the girls like really struggle with like they keep making the mistakes over and over and over, and it makes me want to pull my hair out. But like I don't know, it's just like I feel like I picked up on boxing really quickly and kickboxing and Muay Thai, and I love Muay Thai because I love knees and elbows. I especially like I had a girl who was a Muay Thai fighter who I fought, and I went in and locked up on her, and she started kneeing me, and I was like, I do not like that, and automatically went for the takedown. And from that, it like made me like, okay, I need to learn this Muay Thai, because that was not comfortable. That was not nice.
She said, "Whop whop." You said, "No, no, no, no. You're going down. We gotta stop this now." Man, I can't. I said it whenever we talked on the audio episode of the Christmas special in December. I cannot imagine doing any of this stuff, man. This is crazy. You got to be willing to go in there and be willing to take some shots. You got to be willing to get taken down and try to defend against all of that while you're trying to do it at the same time. It's got me doing mental gymnastics. How do you do that? How do you process everything at a split second and go, okay, yeah, I know what I'm doing now. I know what I need to do. Is it just time and repetition?
Yeah, I mean, I spend hours and hours in the gym. I mean, when I came down here to Arkansas, I've been going to Westside MMA, and that's where I actually have met Bryce from. And you know, and every state that I've traveled to for horse racing, I pop into every single gym, and I like to jump from gym to gym to, you know, you get all different partners to train with, and you get like it's all new partners, and you make new friends. And we say in fighting that iron sharpens iron, so it's always good to have people who are, you know, who have new abilities and who are able to test you and to teach you things. And it's kind of like the same thing with like jockeys and horse racing. Like, you know, like I've gotten to meet, we had the Hall of Fame day here at Oaklawn the other day, and I got to meet a couple Hall of Famers. And
Oh, wow.
you know, they got like they're older, and they kind of told me some things, and it's like, oh, you know, I've never looked at it like that or thought of it like that. And you know, I think that even like with fighting, like you don't even have to speak English. Like it's like just by teaching somebody something, like little things can make the world's difference.
It's crazy, man. I think it's awesome that you're able to do as much as you've done in the different worlds that you're in, you know, because these are completely separate worlds. You got one world where you're like you said, racing 12 horses against, you're on a horse racing 12 other horses. And then you got this completely separate world where it's 1v1, and it's just you and one other person inside of a cage or inside of a ring or
In a
wherever
cage.
you're at. Yeah, inside of a cage. Most notably for you, the octagon, the UFC octagon.
Mhm.
What was the journey to get there like? How long did it take, and what was the journey like to get to the Ultimate Fighter?
I mean, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. It's a bit of a long story and a long process, but it just basically was, I was in Oklahoma City, I was in college and I was wrestling there, and I was just finishing up with school and that, and I don't know, something just drew me I moved to Arizona for a little bit with a friend from college. He went to Arizona State University and had wrestled there, and then he was moved back home, and I had an opportunity with some friends from there to get in touch, and I got in some gyms. I went to the MMA lab. Benson Henderson was there, and I was also up in Flagstaff, which is at the 8,000 feet. The Arizona Cardinals go up there for like training, and so I went up there and actually joined a Muay Thai gym up there for a little bit, and then because I kept kind of moving west, I had an opportunity to move in with some friends that were fighters from Washington, and moved into a fighter house in Las Vegas. So I lived in Las Vegas for a little bit. So I put myself moving to train at one of the best gyms in the United States, and just pretty much like lived in it and just spent a lot of time in there. And you know, I knew I had ability. It was just applying myself and you know, being in there and putting in the time and doing everything. Yeah, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, you're an athlete. Like you're spending the time like one, and yeah, it's a tough sport. It's very, very tough. It's not easy.
How did they get a hold of you? How did you get that opportunity?
So the first college I went to was a community college in Washington. It was Yakima Valley Community College, and I wrestled there on the women's team. And at the time, I was also going there to Yakima MMA, and Misha Tate was there, and her at the time boyfriend Brian Caraway was there, and they were looking. Misha had just won the Strike Force belt against Marlos Kunin, and this was just before the like brink of like women entering the UFC, and Misha was one.
Was that during the time when like Gina Carano was in there?
Yes.
Okay.
And Misha was looking to improve and to work on wrestling, and so I said, "Well, come to the college, like come come jump into the wrestling room, like I mean, working out. I mean, it's like a free practice. Like we could use another body in there, and you'll get college level wrestling." And so yeah, she just started coming in and stuff, and she's from Tacoma, and I'm originally from Enumclaw, and her ex-boyfriend Brian Caraway at the time, he's from the Tri-Cities in Richland. And Washington, the MMA scene there is like, it's a small, like, it's just kind of like horse racing. It's like anything, like if you know somebody of somebody kind of a thing. And I had I just kept in contact with them and was friends with them. And on my journey of when I moved to the Midwest, there was a fighter, her name's Nictali Rivera, and she was at Tulsa, and so I would go up there and I would go train with her sometimes. And she's actually one of Misha's best friends. And so anytime that she would be coming up there, or like there was a weekend, I would go up there and I would go train with them. So I had kind of seen Misha like kind of around the United States a little bit, and we kept in contact. And then when I was moving out west and I moved to Arizona, she had asked me, she said, "Hey, do you want to come to Vegas?" And I just, without like any thought process of anything, was like, "Yep, I'm putting in my 2 weeks at my job and I'm out of here. Like I'm leaving Arizona and I'm heading to Las Vegas." And it was kind of the opportunity and chance of a lifetime, and it really helped me to start live in that fighter lifestyle of living in a fighter house, of training all the time, I already had a healthy diet, but it's always hard whenever you don't have roommates and people who are not on the same level of an athlete's diet as you, and that are not drinking and partying all the time. And you're an athlete, like you train for fights, and then afterwards you can have a little bit of play, but for the most part you're on a pretty straight track.
Yeah, dedicated to that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
But so what was the fight like getting in there and fighting in the UFC in the Ultimate Fighter? What was that fight like, and how did you prepare for it?
I was actually sick when I was going into that fight, which is the worst. I hate doing anything when I'm sick. I hate working when I'm sick. I hate going to practice when I'm sick. And it was like, I don't know if it's like, whatever God had bigger plans or, what the things lined up to be. But the girl who I lost to, Tatiana Suarez, she's a bronze Olympic medalist wrestler. She has a very high
Wow.
level. Yeah. And she is actually up a weight class. And she came down. I mean, she's taller than me. She's bigger than me. And as you can see, I was the better fighter. I had more skills. But her wrestling and the size and everything was, I'm small. I mean, I can
Yeah.
hold my own. But, unfortunately with riding points and with points that you get on being on your back, they go against you. So, because it was for a reality TV show and it's an exhibition match, it does not count against my record. But
Yeah.
I mean, if I could just go back, the only thing I wish I could change is that I just wasn't sick.
Yeah. Definitely. I could imagine. Uh, were you sick the whole time before prepping and everything like that?
I
Did you hear
lost
me?
you right there.
Oh, okay. I said, were you sick the whole time leading up to the fight as well as during the fight?
It just started happening like just before I was about to, all the filming process was going on and going into the house. Like I had like, and it's like, cause it's the elimination rounds. They're doing it right off the bat. So, I mean, they know what they're doing. Sean Shelby, the matchmaker, and Dana White, like you take the wrestlers versus the wrestlers, you take the kickboxers versus the like it's the round of elimination to see. And, she went on to win the season. And I
Oh,
was the only
wow.
girl that had, yeah, and I was the only girl to give her longest match. So that's a testament to, to my level of fighting abilities and to, what level she is. So, I mean, I can't say that, obviously, because right now I'm concentrated with the horse racing because you can't do both. You have to be
Yeah.
dedicated to one or the other. I definitely wouldn't say I'm done fighting. I haven't hung up the
Yeah.
gloves yet.
Yeah. Um, I think that you are definitely top tier from what I've seen in that. It's what, 2 rounds, in the show? It's 2 rounds for the exhibition fight or something for the eliminations?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I saw, from what I saw, you did amazing in it. I mean, your stand up, the way you held yourself composed, blocking everything was great. You being sick, Jesus, you did amazing. I think
Yeah,
it's
I would have.
awesome.
I, I think I would have had more energy, and I would have been able to like. It's just, uh, when you're sick, you feel like shit. Like you're
Yeah.
not yourself. Like it's just, and I remember I blew my nose afterwards and everything, and my head was stuffy. Like I was like trying as much as I could to like this is like one of the biggest moments of my life right now, and it's like, why do I have to be sick? Like what? Like why? At any other day, let me have been sick like 2 weeks ago, a month ago, but I think like when you're striving into that, like you do run yourself down. You are going through a lot. Like I mean, it's training for fights it's grueling. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of pushing your body to the limits. You're dieting. Um, I mean, I can get down for riding and for fighting down to 105, and the 115 weight class is a bump up for me because I got girls coming down from like the 130s and the 125s, and I can't break myself to get past, even if I really tried, past 120. So,
Yeah.
you know, I would love it if they opened up a an atom weight class. If they open up an
Yeah.
atom weight class, I will drop everything that I will doing and I will go jump back into the gym.
I think that also not only does it just make you feel like shit when you're sick, it takes away a lot of your explosiveness, whether it's your punches, your kicks, whether it's your takedowns. It takes away the explosion that comes with it because, like you said, you're just you're a zombie in there. You know, no matter what you're doing, you're a zombie when you're feeling sick. But probably one of the I would imagine that's definitely one of the highlights of your career, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I mean, it's not like it's the end of the world. It is what it is. But I kind of hit a little bit of a point where I had met my husband, and I don't know. I'm a spur of the moment, like live by the seat of my pants type of a gal. As you can't tell by just moving across the country like it's nobody's business. And like when my husband, he had known I'd wanted to get into horse racing, so I think at like a point I just kind of made a split decision that I wanted to just do a career change.
Yeah.
And so that's when I dove straight into like, I'm going to be a jockey.
There you go. There you go. After your career with MMA, wait, first, before I say what I was going to say, because I may be able to rephrase it better, it wasn't coming out in my head right. Have you done any kind of training before you started helping these kids out?
One more time.
Oh, I said, have you done any training, have you trained people before you started helping these high school kids out?
I honestly, I mean, I work out like a little bit, for riding and stuff, which is more like upper body explosiveness, and get on a bicycle to work on my thighs for my legs, breezing horses in the morning. But, I mean, going to the gym in Little Rock, it's kind of far and few. But I just kind of just jump into it. Like you just have that 2 weeks where you're really sore from your every single muscle in your body being used, but then it like builds up and you just get right back into the swing of things. And I think that just because I'm so active that like my body, it's just muscle memory that I already have, so it just comes like second nature to me.
Yeah, definitely. When did you start training kids in wrestling? Is it something new, or was it something that you did for a while?
When I had first gotten here to Hot Springs, I had reached out to all three of the high schools at Lake Hamilton, at Hot Springs High School, and Lakeside High School. And I was really shocked that wrestling hadn't even been a thing in Arkansas for that long.
It really hasn't.
And
it really hasn't.
And two of the high schools didn't even have a team. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. You got Texas next door, which is like wrestling fools, and Oklahoma right next door, which is like the capital. And then here's Arkansas. I was a little confused. And when they had just gotten the program, Lakeside High School had it, and so I talked to the coach and asked him, and he said, yeah, I know, you're more than welcome to come in. I went and took my assistant coaching credentials, and I got fingerprinted and everything through the school to make sure that I was a legal beagle. And I've just kind of popped in there. He knows that I'm obviously, like, my job is the first thing that comes up. Like, I do have the horses, like that's my job, and so I volunteer, I assistant coach. So I get paid for one, I don't get paid for the other. And but I love it, I miss it, so every chance that I get, I do want to be involved. And I also think that because I am a high level grappler, that it is a skill, and that being able to help kids out is an extension of my skill. And also for females, I don't think that they realize that at some point in time, that it's I think a 1 in 6 chance that women are that they could be a victim of like a sexual assault. And, you know, the same thing that goes back to boxing and kickboxing and everything. Like, yeah, that's sure and great, but if you get down on the ground, you're not going to be able to defend yourself. And so I think that it's a really good way for women to be able to learn how to, once again, manipulate weight and to get somebody off of you and to be able to just create that distraction to be able to escape, you know, even if it's just to make a run for it.
Definitely.
And, yeah, it's also one of the biggest things that for scholarships right now for women. It's like one of the biggest opportunities for school for women to get a college scholarship. You're more likely to get a college scholarship for wrestling than you are for softball or soccer or, you know, all the other sports that all the other girls do.
Oh, wow. I had no idea about that. Why is that?
Because there's so few girls that do it, and the colleges are in need of, they want, you know, to get more girls into the programs, and it's a growing sport. Yeah, I just think that it's kind of, now it's starting to more and more, it's kind of making a move. Whenever I first started, I remember my freshman year in the state of Washington, I think there was like almost 2,000. There was like 1,800 girls that were wrestling. And there was no 1A, 2A, like girls were wrestling. I was wrestling boys. I was wrestling girls of all school. Like I was wrestling people from other states, Canadians, like I was wrestling everybody. And then by my senior year, I think there was over 5,000 girls that were wrestling in the state.
Man, I tell you what, I've not been in school, in high school since 2008. And there definitely wasn't a wrestling program at Lakeside back then. If there was, me and several of my friends would have definitely gotten on board with it because I've been a professional wrestling, which is way different than than collegiate or high school wrestling. But professional, I've been a professional wrestling fan since I was 7 years old. And if I could do anything close to that, I definitely would have jumped at the opportunity. My brother was in school at Lakeside till 2012 when he graduated. Didn't have it back then even. So it is definitely a very new thing. But I wonder how has this year's season gone for Lakeside's wrestling team?
The wrestling coach Burchard, he got coach of the year. He's the head coach here at Lakeside. We had, I think 3 or 4 state placers, and I think there were 8 in total. 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8. I have to look at the picture because I took a picture of all the boys that had gotten 3rd or 4th, and then we had the few that had actually gotten state their senior years. But I mean, it's funny because like they only had like 6 mats, and that's like for like the state, for like the whole state of Arkansas, and like state back home in Washington is in the Tacoma Dome, and there's like 30 minutes. Like it's like the whole entire like where concerts are and everything. It's like just there's mats on like every. So it's like funny to see that there was like only 6 mats there, and like even at the finals in Washington, which is in the evening, they start like rolling up all the other mats. There's still like 10 to 12 mats on the grounds that are like just for all the schools and all the kids. Like, so it was like, it's good to see that I can see that it's growing, but I feel like it's still like in its infancy.
Man, God, is it, I have a lot of questions about wrestling. My ex-wife, her younger brother was a wrestler at Bismarck years ago, and he won state for Bismarck, in the heavyweight division. Is wrestling like a singular sport, kind of like MMA, where it's just one person gets to go to this, or this person goes to this, or is it like the whole team?
It's a team, but there's the weight brackets.
Okay.
So you get all of the weight brackets, so you individually get scored, whether you get a pin or you win by points. So when it's a duel, it'll be one school versus another school. So it'll be like one kid in like the 105 weight class or the 109 weight class, like
Okay.
versus the other team. And when you don't have somebody in that weight class, then you have to forfeit. So that other team gets points. So, and then it goes to be at the duel of whatever team or whatever school gets the most points through pins, because you want a pin. That's how you get the most points. Then it goes to what school wins the duel. But then at a tournament where you get, 4 schools or more schools, then that's when you start to create a weight bracket. And that's where you put all the kids that are in this weight. You can get the exhibition matches where if, that you don't have enough kids in this weight class, you can find the closest weight class and then you can have them wrestle in it. And then, it goes to regionals, throughout the rest of the season, where, you get whoever's in the region that's going to qualify to go to state. And then after, regionals, then you go to, districts. Okay. First there's districts. So districts is where you get to see where you're placing. Then you go to regionals, and then from regionals, wherever you place, then you go to state. And, I had some, go ahead.
No, I just said, okay. I'm trying to understand what you're telling me, trying to mentally picture everything. So
Okay.
you go, so
So
district, then regionals, then state.
yes, but
Okay.
they have a lot of you go through the schools. So like the 1A schools will go versus the 1A schools, the 2A schools, all the way up to, I don't know what the largest school here in Arkansas is, 6A or
7,
5A,
I think.
6A. Okay, 7A. So each school will compete against each other. So in the place like the state of Hawaii, there's only one state in every school. Like if you're a state champion, you're a true state champion. There is no 7 state champions for 7 school brackets. Like it's
Okay.
it's like all the final to the end. Like if you lose out and you don't make it through districts to get to regionals to get to state, you're just you didn't make it. But here it creates a lot more opportunity of like all each weight class through each school. And when I was wrestling, there wasn't none of that for the girls. Like we were all going against whatever girls there were, or whatever boy was in the weight class to wrestle, because it's by weight. It's not by gender, it's by weight.
Okay. So that's a way to truly prove that you are the superior wrestler, period, in the state. It wasn't like, all right, girls over here, boys over here. It was like everybody in the pot at the same time. If they were in your weight class, you were going against them, and you were in there to say, you're not going to beat me. I'm the best in the state in my weight class. Is there a like national championship in high school, or is that only in like collegiate level?
I mean, I am a national champion wrestler, a collegiate level. That's basically state. That's basically in high school, that whenever you go to state, that proves that you're the state champ, or you're a state placer, or like a state runner up. Like you've made it through districts, you made it through regionals. Like, you got to think like in districts that, you got counties, you're going through against other counties. And then in regionals, you're going against the region of whatever state. And then at state, it's, it's kind of like the March Madness.
Okay. Right on. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on here today. We're getting a little short on time. I really appreciate you coming on and spilling all this information about pretty much things I have no clue about. Thank you for informing me and really teaching me about a bunch of different stuff. It's awesome. At the end of each episode, I like to do something, and it's because I'm a very grateful person. I'm super grateful for all kinds of things. And what I usually do is I'll say 3 things that I'm grateful for, and afterwards I'll ask my guests to say 3 things that they're grateful for. For me, most of the time, it doesn't really change that much. The first thing I'm grateful for is my support system, and that's in anything I do. It's this podcast, professional wrestling, music, it doesn't matter. And that's my family, my friends, my fiance, my 2 beautiful daughters, my parents, my brother, anybody that supported me on any journey I've been on. I'm super grateful to have them in my life. The second thing that I'm super grateful for is you guys, the people that really, if I'm being honest, don't have any reason to come on here. I'm just some random guy that wants to talk to people. And I appreciate the hell out of each and every one of you that choose to come on here because, like I said, there's no reason for anybody to come and talk to me. I'm just some dude. So very, very, very humbled and grateful to have each and every guest that comes on here. It means the world to me to have y'all guys on here. And the third thing is to have my, is I'm very grateful to have my health, to be healthy, to be able to get up and move around throughout the day, to be able to not hurt, to be able to spend time with my kids or my friends, to be able to go and have those wrestling matches or sing or talk to you guys. I'm very thankful and grateful for my health. So, Chel-c, what are 3 things that you are grateful for in this very moment?
We're spot on with the health. I always say that health is wealth. And in this industry, in sports, I see that, an injury is a huge setback. And, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that it's something as simple as walking. There are people out there who can't even walk, who are in a wheelchair. So I try to never, ever take the little things for granted ever. And definitely health is number 1 up there for me. And also, I guess you could say it is a number 2 thing that, a lot of people take for granted, of having a roof over their head, for having running water, for having food on the table, just the basic things like that I'm very grateful that I'm able to take care of myself, and that, there are people out there who are struggling on, other levels, and that I'm just grateful that I have food. I'm able to go into my pantry and I have, some canned food that I can make myself something to eat, or I can go grab some vegetables and make myself a salad. And clean water. It might have some fluoride in it. I might have to go down to the water stations and get some water, or from the hot springs, or use my Brita to filter it. But I have water. So those basic little things that a lot of people overlook and don't ever think about, I'm very grateful for those. And having the roof over my head, there's a lot of homelessness in the United States. So I'm very grateful that I have a bed to sleep in and a roof over my head, where some people are living in a tent on the streets and not so well in life. And also, like you said, with people, I'm very grateful for a lot of the people that God has put in my life, of my friends, my family, who I couldn't choose and pick, but the people that He has put in my path, and the friends that I do have, and the people that I can always call up at any time to talk to. It's just the small things that always mean the most to me.
Definitely. 3 wonderful things to be grateful for. Absolutely. And I'm sure there's many, many more things you could name off, just like I could. But once again, I thank you so much for coming on here. It means a lot to me. We'll have to get you back on after the race season or something a little bit later on, and talk about how everything went for you as a whole in your racing in this race season and everything. Have you back on, tell us how everything's been going. It'd be great.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to let you get back to having the rest of your evening, doing whatever it is you're going to be doing, relaxing, I'm sure, because you've had a very busy day today.
Yep, going to sleep.
I hear you. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Chel-c.
No problem. Have a great evening, Adam. It was great talking to you.
It was great talking to you, too. What a great episode. What an awesome time I had talking to Chel-c. She is just a fountain of knowledge whenever it comes to wrestling. She had wrestled at a very high level. That transitioned into her MMA career, and now she's racing at Oaklawn and all over. And I hope one day she's able to make it to the Kentucky Derby, or the Triple Crown, as it were, that she talked about. It's awesome getting the chance to learn about stuff that you don't know about. I got to do that today, learning about horse racing. I hope you guys got to learn some things as well. And have fun on this interesting conversation with Chel-c. Chel-c, we're going to get you back on at a later point. It was so fun having you on, and thank you so much.
let's look forward to next week. Next week we have two guests that have been on the show before, have full episodes. We have an actor, James Stokes, coming back on, making his video debut on the podcast, as well as another guy who's been on and making his video debut, the current South Central Wrestling Cruiserweight Champion. He's got a chance to go for the Vapors Championship Wrestling Heavyweight Championship on May 11th. We're going to talk to him about that and pretty much everything else that has happened recently. Guys, it has been such a good time. I cannot wait for next week. I hope you had a great time. And never forget to always listen when Adam talks. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, or night whenever you're watching or listening to this, and we will see you very, very soon.